Okay. Okay. Um, could you please let me know if you can hear me in the live chat? I mean, in the live chat, let me know if you can hear me clearly, please. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll wait for a response. Hmm. I'll wait to get the response before I begin. Pure Aim, thank you for being here. I'll wait till more people respond in the live chat. At Alsatia Johnson, thank you for being here. I posted the scripture for today, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 21. Maria Garcia, thank you for being here. So, okay. If you have your Bibles or if your Bible app or you go to BibleGateway.com, please read 1 Thessalonians verse 21. It's only one sentence, divided in two parts. Read it, please. Evelyn May, thank you for being here. Doris Beckman, thank you for being here. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 21. Are you there? Kurinin-san, 22, thank you for being here. Jonah M., thank you for being here. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 21. All right, I'm just going to wait for one more minute, then I'll begin to teach. For those who are here already, please read the scripture I've given in the live chat. Thank you very much. Jessica Lay, thank you for being here. Esan, thank you for being here. Please read 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 21. For those who are here already. Okay. It's all right. Okay. So for those that already read the piece of the scripture, it's really a long scripture, and I'm going to read it now for you. It says, "Prove all things, hold fast that which is good." Or a more modern translation would be, "Test all things." Well, to prove all things simply means that you're going to examine something. So to test all things, just a modern way of saying it. So prove all things, hold fast that which is good. So if you want to hold on to what is good. But in order to know what's good, you need to examine it first. You can't just assume just because something carries the label good on it, it is good. Or just because something carries the title Christian or the name Jesus Christ, it automatically is from the Heavenly Father. No. You need to examine stuff. Okay? And the reason I'm talking about this in this live chat is because I've noticed that many believers simply don't obey this commandment. In the New Testament, every instruction for life that benefits you is a commandment. Consider it a commandment. Don't consider it just an advice. Everything that benefits you as a believer is a commandment because you're meant to operate in life in abundance. So, what we're talking about in this Live stream is that we need to examine the fruit of something. Look, if you're driving in your car, let's say you're driving in your car in Tennessee or in Texas or any of those big US states where there are a lot of farms. Let's say you're driving around in Tennessee around the farms, and you pass around a bunch of trees, and you're hungry. And those are not trees that are part of someone's farm, just trees around the road, so you're free to pick any fruit that's on the tree. If you want to eat an orange, and that means you want to look for an orange tree. How do you recognize an orange tree? Well, there are oranges growing on it. You would say, duh, Rashid, of course an orange tree has oranges growing on it. Fair enough. If you want an apple, you go to an apple tree. Now there are various types of apples. You have Granny Smith apples, you have those apples they use for cakes. So even apples, there are various species of apples. Well, an apple is an apple. Now, you may find an apple tree, and the type of apple that grows on it is not the type of apple you want. Maybe you want green apples, but the red apples growing on it, but still it's an apple tree. Now, the apple tree may not bring forth the type of apples you want. Maybe you want the green apples, but brings forth red apples, but it's still the apple tree. You will never find an orange on an apple tree. Now, that's a very easy example. You check the fruit, and by checking the fruit, you can see what type of tree it is, because the fruit is an expression of what the tree is. Once you see the fruit, you recognize the root. So the root was an apple seed. That's why we turned it to an apple tree. If you see oranges at a tree, then the root was an orange seed. That's why it became an orange tree. Very simple. But when it comes to daily life, things are a bit more complicated. Why? Because when it comes to examining stuff in daily life, too often we examine things from a self-centered point of view. We ask the question, does this benefit me? And the me we're talking about is just the self that wants relief. So worldlings crave relief. That's what they do. So everything that benefits their agenda of seeking relief, they consider beneficial to them. For example, if you have a heroin addict, the heroin addict will consider friends that enable him in his addiction to be good. The heroin addict has one thing on his mind to get his high. So he will go to the pub or the club where there's dealing because he needs to get heroin. If he goes to a club or a pub where there's no drug dealing happening, then he won't get his high. And he depends on his high. So a drug addict will perceive anyone or anything that will help him get his high as beneficial. And indeed, getting the high enables him to suppress negative emotions and to continue in daily life without being overwhelmed. So it has a short-term benefit for him, but with long-term negative side effects. But as long as he's only focused on the short-term relief, and he doesn't care at all about the long-term benefits, then according to his viewpoint, getting drugs or people that help him get drugs are beneficial. Now, the example of the drug addict is quite extreme. And with a drug addict, it's obvious that his perception is skewed. So, just like Sundarai said, it's a null movement. It's a movement that leads to nothing. It's a movement that will cancel itself out. I spoke about the null movements before. Thank you for bringing that up, Sundarai. So, worldlings crave short-term benefits because long-term solutions require effort and alertness. To be involved and alert, you need to be vulnerable. And to be vulnerable is a risk, and that's something worldlings don't want. So worldlings, they're not really into long-term solutions. They just want instant or quick or rapid benefits. So a worldling will only judge something based on, can I escape? Can I escape difficulty? For example, let's say you arrive at a school, okay? You're 14 years old and you're new at a school. You want to make friends. Some of the people may decide to talk to you, others do not. Now, if you look like those people, you have a similar background to them, that they will consider you as an extension of them, and then they will validate you. Because by validating you, they're validating themselves because you look like them. That's why there are many high schools that enforce, I would say, a uniform, because when you have a uniform, people at least will recognize themselves in you. And with worldlings, when they recognize themselves in you, they will treat you as an extension of them. So they will treat you better. If you look different than them, then they will treat you as something foreign. Okay? So the people that decide to ignore you are the people who don't see any short-term benefit in being around you. Now, some of those people will talk to you only because they see a long-term benefit that they can exploit. But then they will only stay around you as long as they can see a cashing out of that long-term benefit. The moment that long-term benefit does not come, or is frustrated, they leave. Fallen mankind is always on the run. Fallen mankind just wants to flee. Fallen mankind has no movements. That is what they have. And because of this defect, fallen mankind doesn't know this trap so easily. And that's why worldlings are so easily deceived. You may think that demons are using a lot of intelligence and a lot of planning and a lot of good strategies that are beyond human comprehension in order to deceive the masses. That's not true. Once you figure out how the paranormal works, you realize that demons are quite dumb, actually. They're not the brightest beings there are. First of all, if they were so bright, they would never went against the Heavenly Father, and preferred permanent self-destruction above eternal joy and absolute joy in the heavens. Okay? So, unclean spirits know one thing about following the guy, and that is that they just want to flee. And it is urge to flee that they're using against the masses. That's all demons are doing. Because if worldlings would stop fleeing and start facing stuff, demons would lose the grip on them instantly. So, do you understand now what it is that makes worldlings so easy to deceive? Do you understand now where the advantage of demons come from? Let me know in the live chat. So, now that we understand this, we also understand why worldlings end up falling for scams over and over again. And here's another thing. Because worldlings insist on fleeing, this pride of insisting on fleeing hinders them from admitting that they were tricked. A worldling would prefer you to torture and smack them around over and over again than for them to admit they've been scammed or they've been conned. Worldlings cling on to fleeing. They really insist on it so much. This insistence is pride. And this pride blinds them from seeing that, oh, you're being taken advantage of. And the moment they need to admit they've been taken advantage of, that will expose themselves for how unintelligent their behavior is. Because there's nothing intelligent about insisting on a course of action that will not benefit you in the long run. That's not intelligent at all. Yet worldlings have this thing called intellectual pride, in which when they don't see any benefit for them, they oppose something. They say no and they attack when they don't see a benefit for them in it. But what if the benefit they hope to see is not really a benefit at all? So if worldlings resist something or they oppose something because they don't see any benefit in it, and later their opposition is proven to be self-destructive, now they need to admit that all the effort they've made was useless and it was not really intelligent. Because if they would have used their intelligence, they would have sat down, examined the situation, and realized, you know what? Why would we say no and oppose something just because we don't see any benefits in it? The benefits we're craving are those really benefits to begin with. Oh, we haven't even examined ourselves. If they would use their intelligence, they would become humble. But worldlings have intelligence, but they use it just to get their next high. See it as a drug addict that wants to get the next cocaine shot, instead of realizing, you know what, I can use my intelligence to realize that, you know what, I need help. I need to go see a doctor, whatever. No, the drug addict uses his intelligence to rob and scam people to get money to get this high. That's how the worldlings are. They use their intelligence just to get relief instead of use their intelligence in their advantage in order to find deliverance. So I'm not saying worldlings have no intelligence. That would be insulting the Heavenly Father and even insulting our own species. They have intelligence, but they use it the wrong way. So their attitude is dumb. Worldlings have a dumb attitude. So they are not dumb, but they have a dumb attitude. That's what they have. And it's this dumb attitude that demons are laughing about. Because understand the following. Evil spirits, they know they're doomed. They know that it's their own fault for being in the permanent miserable state they're in. They want to play the victim, but they know they can't get away with it. They have zero excuses whatsoever. And now they see those beings called human beings. They all came forth out of a vagina. They all grew up. They were all shaped by their environment. The most logical and intelligent thing to do when you're in your teenage years or even in your adolescent years is to admit that, you know what, I came out of a vagina just less than 2 decades ago, or maybe a bit more than a decade ago if you're above 20 years old. I was shaped by my environment. The first few years that I was around, I couldn't even walk, so everyone had to do things for me. My name wasn't even something I decided. The native language didn't even come from me. So I've been shaped by the world. But is the world correct? How was I shaped? Let me reflect how I was shaped. And if something is wrong, what is wrong? That will be the most intelligent thing to do. But worldlings don't even want to address, not even to themselves internally, that they've been conditioned. They don't want to admit that they were the project, they were the product of their environment. And their environment was the product of historical conflicts. They don't even want to address these facts. Those are not conspiracies, those are facts. If a woman grew up in Taiwan, she speaks Chinese. Okay, that's her native language. Unless she was born to foreign parents, she speaks Chinese because she grew up there. She developed the attitude that Taiwanese society expects of her. So anyone who would encounter her would see a reflection of what Taiwanese society expects. For her to claim that she became like that all by her own effort, people laugh at her saying, come on, woman. When you were a little baby, could you decide what your first name was? When you were a little baby, did you even know that there were various languages? No. So anyone could see she is the product of the Taiwanese society over there. But here's the thing. What if this woman would insist that everything in her life is all by her own effort? Everyone will just look at fact, will say this cannot be true. You have a mortal body, you came forth out of a womb, and you had to grow up, so you didn't bring everything on yourself. But here's the thing. Worldlings have this dumb attitude that they want to take credit for things they can't take credit for. And things they should face, they don't want to face. So when you look at it, evil spirits are looking at those worldlings and thinking, what? They're looking at each other thinking, are those human beings for real? They don't even want to address nor face that they've been shaped by the actions of their ancestors. So worldlings, their dumb attitude is what keeps them in loops of destruction. I'm not saying that evil spirits are not guilty nor responsible for their part in deceiving the masses. I'm not saying that worldlings were not deceived nor brainwashed when they were children. I'm not denying any of that. But the reason why all those lies keep on working on them is because they have a dumb attitude that needs to be addressed. And the Bible calls this dumb attitude pride. It's this dumb attitude of worldlings that keeps them in danger. So that is why most worldlings will never notice a hidden agenda playing out. Even that hidden agenda is not even that hidden anymore. And it goes quite further. Many worldlings, even when you show them evidence that proves that something wrong is going on, if the wrong that goes on goes against their investments, they will just decline it. They will say, I don't want to hear it. Okay, you don't want to hear it, but just because you don't want to hear it doesn't mean it's not going on. And when the thing that they want to hear, they want to process it. Instead, they don't want to hear about it, but when it breaks them down, now they want to escalate on someone. So, for believers who are renewed in the mind, we are able to recognize hidden agendas. And here's the thing, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to be a police detective with 40 years of experience. You don't have to even have a PhD in forensics in order to recognize hidden agendas. The only thing you need to do is to ask the right questions to yourself. You don't even have to ask these questions to other people, but ask yourself the right, proper questions. By asking yourself the right, proper questions, you activate your own mind to register things you didn't register before. Okay? Okay, let me give an example. Let's say now that let me think of a good example to use for you. Let's talk about, I'm going to use an ancient example now that is quite obvious to us because we are living far beyond those ages. But for those that lived at the time, it may not have been that obvious. Okay, we know that Christ lived in the Roman Empire. We know that. And the first apostles also. Okay, and we know that the Roman Empire had this border in Europe, which was the Rhine and Danube River. And above the Rhine-Danube rivers, you had the ancient Germany called Germania. And above Germania also extended into what they call Scandinavia. Now, ask yourself the following. If it's true that over and over again, you had Germanic criminals crossing the Rhine and Danube River into the Roman provinces to loot and to commit crime, why is it then that the Romans didn't just send several legions and occupied the wall of ancient Germany, or they could have occupied Scandinavia and it would have shut it all down? They had all the ability to do it. And look at this. For those that know a bit more of ancient history, the population in the east of the Roman Empire was far higher than in the west. The population in the west of the Roman Empire was in decline, as I mentioned before in another live stream about the history of France. So hold on a minute. So you have an empire that's quite big. In the west, the population is in decline, and in the east, the population is growing. So the economic power is in the east. And remember, the ancient Greeks established the Roman Empire, the Parthian Empire, and they pressured the Asians to establish the Han Dynasty. Those were the three administrations they had to govern the whole world. So if in the Roman Empire, most of the people live in the east, then it's expected that raiders from this cold area called ancient Germany or Germania are going to come over to benefit from the low population. But here's the thing. How do they know the population was low? How did they know? There was no Google Maps at the time. There was no internet. There was no television. There was no telephone, none of that. So you read in history, often there were raids of Germanic bands or Germanic gangs into ancient France, which was called Gaul by the Romans. But here's the thing. It's a whole river you have to cross. And those rivers at the time were quite wild also. So the only way you could cross the river is by either building small boats or you had to cross a bridge. And if it happened over and over again that Germanic criminals would come over, crossing the rivers to loot all over the place, remember, they had to go on horses. So if you have horses, you need to stop at some village to feed the horses or to sleep or whatever. And here's the thing, the Romans also had various military camps at the Rhine and Danube River. They had a lot. And also had river ships on the rivers that patrolled all around. So if you have such a big military presence at those two rivers, how is it possible that you have Germanic gangs over and over again raiding places in your empire? That can only happen, largely speaking, if the Roman military is in on it. The only way you can have hundreds and hundreds, or sometimes even thousands of young men from ancient Germany entering the Roman Empire and looting, causing crime is because somewhere the military allows it to happen. And why would the Roman military allow it to happen? Because if it happens, because I mentioned before that in Gaul eventually believers became dominant. So if you had those pagan thugs entering into Gaul often, you now would increase urban danger. And when people are in danger, they want more protection. And now they would look for Rome, the empire, to protect them. So, and here's the thing, the kings of the ancient Germanic kingdoms, they sent their children to Rome to study. So the children of those Germanic kings all went to Rome where they got an education. So so the kings and the leaders of those Germanic tribes, they were all, for generations, educated in Rome, the capital of the world. Yet from their own countries, you have a lot of criminals cross into the Roman Empire all the time. Yet the Romans keep receiving the sons and sometimes daughters of those Germanic elite into Rome. Wouldn't you think, okay, if there are many criminals from those Germanic tribes invading, crossing the border and causing trouble, let's stop the diplomatic arrangements with those kingdoms till this is resolved. That never happened. And that shows you it was all a hoax. Those so-called Germanic raiders who really paid soldiers of the Germanic tribes to do the dirty work for the Roman military, namely to scare the population so that the population would cling on to the Roman emperor as their god. That is what was going on. It was just arranged devil worship. So if you lived in was Lugdunum Batavorum, which was located at what we today call Leiden in the Netherlands, if you lived around there, then you would have asked yourself, how come we have all those soldiers around here? There were like 40,000 soldiers stationed in the area that later became the Netherlands at that time. So if you have 40,000 soldiers over there, and they're quite armed, and those soldiers were also assisted by auxiliary troops. So you have 40,000 official soldiers, and you may have like 20 or 30,000 assistants. So you have maybe 70,000 troops eventually. How can you have 70,000 troops in the north of the Rhine, and still you have a lot of criminals crossing over? Anyone would see, no, this cannot happen. But of course, people at the time that were so invested in being accepted by Roman society, they would just say, this is a conspiracy theory that cannot be true. Even when you show them facts, none of this adds up. Now we, far later in history, can look back and realize, no. This cannot be serious. This is a joke that people believe this. But for the people back then, because they had an emotional investment in being accepted by Roman society, they just declined anything that went against their pride. Look, if someone's wife is accused of cheating and you show the husband evidence on the camera that the wife walked hand in hand with another dude towards a motel various times, And if the husband keeps saying to you that you're just making things up, what goes on? He's just too proud to admit that he's been taken advantage of. And he's so delusional that he will explode on you just because he doesn't want to face it. Well, that's a similar thing with worldlings in general. They are proud. And his pride keeps them, as well as their environment, endangered. For example, let me give another historical example of later in history. There was a time when the King of France, or Francia, invaded the British Isles. And he took over England, and he also became the King of England. So in France, he was the king of, in Paris, he was the King of France, and in London, he was the King of England. But they couldn't be at two places at the same time, so he lived in France, and he had this representative that represented him in England. Eventually, he moved to England also. So then, for a few, I would say 1 or 2 generations, you had that the King of France and the King of England were the same individual. Now, eventually, it became unclear where France ended and where England began, or where England ended, where France began. That became unclear. So there was conflict. So what happened? Eventually, the people, the administration of France, conceded large plots of land at the Atlantic shores to England. So England remained with provinces in France. It was a big concession. Many of the French people that lived there suddenly became English subjects. And at the same time, the King of England kept calling himself King of England and France. So you had the situation that now you had this war that lasted for at least a few generations, where England kept sending military men to defend their provinces on the mainland in Europe. Now ask yourself the following. Why would England want to have this large plot of land in France to defend, knowing full well that the French people are not fond of having the English over there? Well, if you understand the blood sacrifice, it will make all perfect sense. The English administration had to relieve its population from the negative energy that the population brought forth. And one way they did this is by sending away many of the young men to die in warfare. Okay? But if all those men would die on English soil, eventually people would realize what the type of pathetic situation it is. But if there now was an extension of England on mainland Europe that he had to defend, now people could hide behind, no, we need to defend our heritage. That's why the young men would think it's an honorable thing to fight for their country and their heritage. They would end up being killed on the battlefield in France. And then their corpses would be buried in France, and people would just move on. And at the French side, you could use that as an narcissistic supply for the French population, saying, you see those English over there, look at how imperialistic they are. They're sending all those young men to die over, knowing full well they're going to be defeated. So on both sides, both on the French side as well as the English side, they're both in on it together. And when you go throughout human history, you will see that in most cases in the world, the conflicts that emerge, as I mentioned in the previous live stream, are artificial. The only reason those conflicts exist is to distract each other from the taboo, which is that they need the Heavenly Father. That's what it comes down to. The same way, when you look at mainstream media today, and all the conflicts that have played out since 9/11, you can clearly see that most of the storylines simply don't add up. You can clearly see that most of the conclusions made are really bad. 9/11 is just as all the military operations since the Greek Empire. They were in orchestrated hoaxes. Now, since the Greek Empire, there were real revolts. There were many slave revolts. There were many civil wars that happened. So there were real conflicts that became bloody in history that were real. Okay, I'm not saying that didn't happen, but when it comes to the military and military conflicts and military warfare, that's just orchestrated hoaxes. By the way, 9 and 11. What's between 9 and 11? 10. What's a 10 written? How do you write 10 in Latin? An X. An X is an abbreviation of Helios. Helios is one of the names of Apollo. So even 9/11 was obviously a sacrifice unto the beast. This is how they codify everything they're doing. So the number one question to ask, you can write this down if you want. Ask yourself, who benefits from this conflict? Just write it down. Who benefits from this conflict? That is the first question you need to ask yourself. Who benefits? If it's crime that goes on in a community, so there are a lot of burglaries, or there are a lot of rapes, or a lot of sexual assault, whatever the crime is that goes on in a community, ask yourself who benefits from it. Now, some people say, but Rashid, you know very well who benefits from it. For criminals benefit from it, but okay. You say criminals benefit from it, but those criminals are living in fear of going to jail. Okay? But here's another thing. Those criminals that earn money or let's say it's only earning money when it comes to drugs or whatever. When it comes to sexual assault, there's no money involved. So not all crime is monetary motivated by monetary gain. So when crime in general happens, who benefits? Well, I'm telling you who benefits. The government does. Why? Because the government can now say to its citizens, you see, there are crazy people out there. You guys need to be protected against them. And we have the police force. We have the courthouses. We have professionals that studied at the top universities. We are here and we are able to protect you. Just trust us. And then the public, they don't want to face the complexity of why crime is happening. They just want relief. So they think, hey, the government is entitled by whom? But the government is entitled and they are capable, so just work with them so that we are left alone. Because when we left alone, they just give in to the suggestion. And later realize, okay, there's all this crime going on, and because of all this crime, you need more police officers. And now that you have more police officers, you have more jobs. And those police officers, their weapons have to be made, so that's more jobs happening. And then you need prisons, and those prisons need to be built, so then you create more jobs. And when the prisons are built, now you need prison wardens. Now you need chefs to cook in the prisons. Now you need cleaners to clean the prisons. So when you look at it very well, crime brings forth jobs for people. And the unemployment goes down. And all those prisons and all the work related to it is only there to fight crime. So realize now, if crime would stop tomorrow, those prisons would be unnecessary. If crime would stop tomorrow, those police officers won't be needed. So if crime would stop tomorrow, much of the economy would collapse. So then realize, so crime is a business. And by the way, who decides whether something is crime or not? The law. Who writes the law? The government. So if the government decides that if you have a speeding ticket, you are automatically a criminal, then suddenly you're a criminal. Whether or not, but if what you did caused harm or not. So that's how you need to look at stuff. Ask who benefits from it. Let me give another example. Let's say now you have this woman who comes on YouTube. She's in her 30s now. She is into BDSM, all types of weird sexual activities, and she was married to a husband and ended up abusing her physically, almost killing her a few times. And now she's on YouTube sharing her story. And she gets many subscribers, many followers. People love to look at her because not only is she good looking, but she also has this witchy, sensual vibe coming from her. So men are turned on by that. Now, a commoner would look at the YouTube channel and say, hey, she's just an attractive female and she has a sob story to tell. That's why people love to watch. That may be factual to some parts. But then she tells her life story, and based on her body language, you can see she's not lying. That she tells you that she was sexually molested at a very young age, and that her family simply did not want to believe her, even when the evidence was there that the perpetrator was doing it, because they didn't want to address the perpetrator. They were so obsessed with keeping their happy family image intact that they didn't want to take action properly for this girl. So now you understand that this girl went traumatized into her sexual development as a teenager, and now you understand where all those weird sexual desires came from. She has internalized her victimization, and now she creates victimization during sex. And this is what led to her attracting this reprobate that began to abuse and smack her around. But here's the thing. This woman now, as a grown woman, has this YouTube channel, who benefits from it? I'm just asking you in the comment section, who benefits from it? Just let me know. I want you to do the thinking and the examination now. Who benefits from it? I'll wait. Yes, the feminists benefit from it. The demons benefit from it. But there's one group you guys forgot. The relatives of the female in question. They benefit from it. You know why? Because now you have this grown woman who has mental issues, who has weird sexual fetishes, and she explains how messed up she is because she was violated as a child. But now the family can simply deny everything and say she's just a messed up woman that wants attention. Now they can use her coming out with the truth against her and say she's looking for attention. Because here's the thing, when she was a little kid and she told them that she was being touched by this weird guy, and there was evidence it was happening, why didn't do anything about it? Because it wouldn't benefit the relief you were clinging on to. So it benefited the relief to keep her endangered and to have her become deformed later in life. So now this woman is also used as a tool by evil spirits to trap men in general. So she was taken advantage of by the relatives, and now she's taken advantage of by the paranormal. And such things happen to a lot of folks. So most people just see a female on YouTube just telling her story to help others survive narcissism. When you look at the bigger picture, you realize that's not really what goes on. That is a victim who's now being used as a tool to keep people away from Christ. Now, she is not a violent, narcissistic predator, no, but she's used by evil spirits to keep people endangered because she's not delivered and she hasn't processed things. So anything that happens out there, anything you encounter, ask who benefits from it. Whether it's something good or something bad, ask who benefits. Because when you ask the question who benefits, you automatically see things differently. The moment you don't ask the question who benefits, you'll be distracted by what you have in front of you. And that is what happens to many believers. We get distracted by what we encounter or what we see in front of us. We don't ask the question, where does the benefit go? There's one thing every sociologist will tell you, and that is that behavior in a community is enabled when it benefits society. And behavior is resisted or punished when it exposes what the interests of society. So in society, it's all about interests and short-term benefits and who can benefit at whose expense. Nobody wants to be the one that's exploited, so everyone is fighting for benefits. That's what society is. So it's one big conflict in which everyone fights to retain benefits. So everything that happens in society, there's someone benefiting of it. So who benefits? Always ask that question. If you don't ask that question, you are already deceived. The moment you realize that something goes on that's bad, and you see that it only brings forth more trouble, why is it that this thing that's bad keeps on happening? Look, if you would go out in the West, or let's say in Europe, and you would put out a swastika. A swastika is used in Asia a lot, but if you would drive around with a swastika on your car, you would have people committing hate crimes against you, and you would even be arrested if you were, for example, in Germany. Why? Due to the Nazi past, they don't tolerate that in Europe. They would oppose it immediately. Okay. But in that same Europe, when they keep showing you distasteful images of starving children in Africa, nobody says, stop this. Why do you always portray black folks in such a distasteful daylight? Oh, carrying a symbol, just a symbol from Asia. In Europe, a symbol that's been associated with mass genocide, oh, you can't do that. Oh, but portraying black folks in a distasteful state over and over again, shaping people to perceive black people as inferior and incapable, oh, you can get away with that. Why? Because here's the thing. The second, which is the portraying black folks in a negative daylight, there's a benefit in it. People can get narcissistic supply out of it. That's why it continues. But to carry a swastika around would remind the population of how wrong white supremacy turned on its own. White supremacy turned on itself during the Second World War. And that's something to confront for the people. And if it revealed too much garbage, historical garbage people haven't processed, so they don't want that. So everything in society that continues to happen, there is some type of benefit in it. There's some type of vested interest. If there is no vested interest in something, then people would shut it down immediately. So it doesn't come down to logic. It doesn't come down to facts. It comes down to relief. Can people get relief out of it? Or does it enable people to escape reality? Then it will be sponsored. Now, don't get things wrong. If you love to go to, let's say, to animation conventions or cartoon conventions, just having a good time with other people dressed up as cartoon characters, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, you can relax. Escaping reality and just relax and do different things. Relax was humanly healthy. Okay, you can do that by going to a pub, or you go to a party, or going to a cinema, or you can play video games, or you can go riding a horse, or playing golf or basketball, whatever Relaxation is natural. Something wrong with that. Escaping reality is when you jump into an activity just to avoid something else. That's escaping reality. It's something completely different. Relaxation is natural, but in the world, relaxation is often used as a cover to escape stuff. And that's why you have those artificial conflicts in society, including on the political level, just that people have um, something to play the victim about. Why do you think Netflix, as well as Disney, as well as those other media organizations, oh, forget Netflix is relatively more modern, since the television became the norm in people's households. They've been making soap operas as well as TV series. It became a whole industry to make TV series, sitcoms, and all of that. Why do you think they do such stuff? Why do you think they create artificial drama in the form of movies or TV series, all of that, and present it to the masses? It is because the masses need artificial conflicts to relieve themselves. If there is a lot of domestic violence that goes on in a community and people get enough of it, eventually it's going to escalate because somebody wants to work with a solution. But if you give everyone a soap opera every 8 p.m. on TV, wow. Now, every day, every 5 days in a week, people know when it's 8 p.m., people will be before television watching what one character is doing to another. Let's say you have a character in a TV series that cheats on his wife. Now everyone is thinking, "Ooh, what if the wife finds out?" Well, everyone is involved in this artificial conflict, and because they're involved in this artificial conflict, they now are distracted from the daily conflicts that they face in daily life. And because everyone's so immersed in those artificial conflicts, now their emotions are charged in those artificial conflicts. And because of this, people, because they are relieved now, they will treat each other relatively better. Thanks for the super chat, soon to rise. It's very well appreciated. Look, I don't think there's anything wrong with TV series, soap operas, or with cartoons, whatever. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. Absolutely not. That you have actors that can act so well, and they may turn it into, and they film the fiction and become successful. There's nothing wrong with it. But they don't make those TV series nor those movies really to enter to actually. They don't make it. They don't make those stuff really to benefit you, nor to make you happy. They don't. They make those things to relieve you. All the sitcoms, TV series, and movies out there that become popular and mainstream are all political. For example, the ancient Egyptians, ancient Egypt's name is Kemet. The people of Kemet were dark-skinned people, just like the ancient Israelites were. Historically disproven, when you look at the ancient texts also, they were dark-skinned people. When the Arabs came in the 8th century, they began to genocide many of the people and replace them with light-skinned Arabs. That's why today when you go to Egypt, you'll find a lot of light-skinned Arabs over there. But they were not original ancient people that lived there. Many of the ancient people from Egypt moved towards the south of the Nile River when the genocides began. So, and there was also a time in ancient times that you had a Greek general that took over Egypt, and he became the pharaoh of Egypt, and his descendants were white Greeks, of which Cleopatra was one of them. That's why you had a few white pharaohs. That doesn't mean that all the ancient Egyptians were white, okay? But here's the thing. When Hollywood made a movie called The Gods of Egypt, why didn't they display the Egyptians as who they really were? Dark-skinned black folks. Why not? Because if they would have done that, it would have meant against white supremacy. And if they would have done that, then they would have to explain to everyone why they portrayed Egyptians as white in all those other Hollywood productions. All those Hollywood movies about ancient Egypt should use black folks as a norm. That's historically correct, but they didn't do it. Why? Because they had to provide this false sense of superiority for the white supremacists, who were the main sponsors of Hollywood via the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church used that white supremacist image of white Jesus also to control the masses psychologically. So those movies Hollywood bring out are all political. It's politics playing out. You think, oh, Ben Affleck or The Rock or Wesley Snipes or Matt Damon or whoever actor is a good actor and this and that is all politics playing out. So when things happen out there, ask who benefits, and also ask the second question, which is also important, what's not being mentioned? That's the second thing you need to ask, what's not being mentioned? For example, with this Pfizer vaccine that came out, according to US law, you can't file them for damages if this vaccine has fatal side effects on you or side effects that harms you. Okay, but they didn't mention this in mainstream media openly. They didn't mention that if you take the vaccine and you get side effects all on you. They didn't even address the fact that the vaccine is so new that they didn't even have the proper chance to figure out the side effects. They didn't even mention the fact that, hold on a minute, they even admit that they don't really know how the virus works. The virus is very new. So if the virus is very new, how can you make a vaccine in less than 6 months against a virus that you almost know nothing about? So the vaccine you've made, you don't know what type of side effects will come. Why haven't they addressed this more often in the mainstream media? It is because this whole vaccine is not about protecting people from COVID-19, nor from any type of virus. There's another agenda behind it. So in this case, there were things that had to be addressed about this COVID-19 vaccine that hasn't been addressed. And here's the thing: there are like 6 vaccines now out there, and none of them can guarantee that it would really work. But so why are they vaccinating people if they can't even be sure that what is produced can work? They say 95% effective. Okay, 95% is still just a 5% chance it's not effective. Effective in what? Yeah, prevent that you get COVID. But here's the thing: you injected people with COVID, so the body builds an immune response against it. So there's a 5% chance that an individual may die of COVID if they take the vaccine. That's what you're saying. So everyone that takes vaccine has a risk of COVID because they get the COVID directly in their bloodstream. That is what they need to mention, and they never do it. They always go, yeah, 95% effective. Hold on, so there's still a 5% chance that I might die of it. Mention that. Oh, they won't mention that because if they would mention it, they would say, no. Why would I take something that I might die from? Of course you're not going to do it. So they present it in a very favorable term. And you have all those actors they put on mainstream media taking it voluntarily. One of them fainted. I believe her name is Tiffany Dover or something. There was this American nurse who had, I'm not sure if she had a high rank in the hospital, but she worked as a nurse for quite some years. She was married, she had children, she took the vaccine, and she fainted. Later, people ask, why did she faint? People say, well, it has nothing to do with the vaccine. They told you may faint when you get the vaccine. First they said that, and then when this individual fainted, they said nothing to do with the vaccine. That was a contradiction. Then the hospital came out and said, well, she's doing perfectly fine. And the hospital withdrew that statement. And now people are asking, where is this woman that voluntarily took the vaccine on live TV? She fainted. What happened to her? She hasn't made any public appearance afterwards. And there are many people, tens of thousands of people are questioning what goes on. Maybe even more than tens of thousands are questioning it. But huge percentage about this matter. Now, if this woman would appear within a week or two, then I would be wrong. Okay, that would be justified to say I was wrong. But if I'm not wrong, okay, then what goes on? How come a woman voluntarily decides to go on national TV for millions of people taking this vaccine, she faints, and after that, you never hear anything about her anymore. And it's been weeks now since it happened. That makes you think, well, what's going on here? And still, you have people in the masses that see this happening, but they don't want to see the fact that, okay, there's something wrong with this whole vaccination program. And here's another thing. If 99% of the people that catch COVID will recover, why did you need to vaccinate everyone? If 99% of all people that catch it will recover, that means that our immune systems are strong enough to deal with it. If 99% of people recover. Because once people recover, if you have underlying health issues, well, that's different because then you're already weakened and then you need extra help. So deal with the people that need extra help. Don't vaccinate everyone whose immune system is strong enough to defeat it anyway. So that's what I mean with what's not being mentioned. About this whole vaccination thing, too many things are not addressed. Okay? So when you have a situation where too many things are not addressed that should be addressed, then you know it's a hidden agenda. The first question asks, who benefits? Second is what's not being mentioned. And haven't you noticed one thing, believers? There's one thing I've noticed about this whole COVID-19 hysteria. In the beginning, they would say, oh, it's a very dangerous virus. You don't even know if you have it. You can transfer to someone else. Other people may die because of you. So stay at home. They were quite hysterical, scaring everyone. Now that vaccines are out, the vaccine makers tell you they can't guarantee that it would work. There's already a mutation of the virus out there that they need to give people a second shot. So the first shot is not sufficient. You need a second shot. So that already shows you that the vaccine doesn't work properly. Because if the vaccine would work properly, you wouldn't need a second shot of it. You get it? Now that the vaccination program is going on, they're not scaring people anymore. Okay? Why is it that they're not scaring people anymore of how dangerous it is all the time? Now that the vaccination program is out there. This is because their agenda is working. Now that the agenda is working, now to stop the scaremongering. And let's say before you know it, when the vaccination program has reached the quote that they wanted, they'll forget all about it. Suddenly you won't talk about COVID-19 anymore. Suddenly you won't hear about lockdowns anymore. So what was the whole issue about? Well, it had nothing to do against promoting, preserving human health. It had to do with depopulating a big portion of the population. Because just think about it. If I'm wrong and I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong. I'm humble. Just think about it, okay? You have this aggressive virus, similar to a flu, of which most people would recover, but a small portion of the population with underlying health issues will likely die. Okay? So now, the vulnerable people in the community, the elderly and people with underlying health issues, you want to vaccinate them first. Shouldn't you know that that virus will kill those people more likely if they have it? So why are you injecting a virus in people with underlying health issues or people who are weaker? So if you have and here's the thing, when you go a few years back, from 2015 and before, they were complaining all the time about the aging population of the West, also in East Asia, but they've been complaining a lot about it. There are too many few children born. What are they going to do with all those elderly people? They were actually complaining about it in politics a lot. And now, 2020, beginning of a new decade, suddenly the elderly are at risk, and they want to inject them as first. Why do you risk the people that are already vulnerable with a vaccine that you don't even know if it will properly work? You don't even know all the side effects. So you're going to risk the lives of people that are weak already. So you're risking death on many people who otherwise would have gotten other help. Does this add up to you? It doesn't add up to me. Those with underlying health issues, and those of elderly are the last ones you should experiment this vaccination upon in mass. And why do all those governments just approve this? Knowing full well that even the corporations said we don't even know if this is going to work. They knew there was a new strain of the virus out already, so the vaccine was produced wasn't that proper anymore. There needs to be a second shot. So why are all those governments in on it to just approve this thing that's been produced in less than 6 months? It is because they're all in on it. I'm saying as it is, they're all in on it. Oh, hold on a minute. They're not complaining about the aging population anymore. Have you not noticed that? For years, they talk about the aging population, what we're going to do about it, and suddenly, since 2020, they don't even complain about it anymore. It's because they found their solution. That's it. What do you think the point of those masks are? Let me know in the live chat. What do you think the point of it is? Yes, the condition, focus, and compliance. So again, when it comes to the hidden agenda, there are two questions: who benefits of whatever goes on and what's not being mentioned. Always remember those two questions. I'm telling you, believers, worldlings have shown themselves for what they really are. Pause here. So they forfeited their credibility completely. So what I just said about the whole hysteria that goes on, just look at the smaller level. If people around you keep complaining about a certain individual, ask yourself, why they complain about this individual? Why they all dislike this individual? Ask yourself, what's the benefit of disliking this individual? Then let's say you have this guy called Roger, and nobody likes Roger. They keep talking bad about Roger anytime they have the chance. They keep murmuring, complaining, because it's Roger, this and that. So you're just like, well, I'm going to look up who's this Roger. And you look at his Instagram, you find out he's a guy from Africa who's making music. And he has almost no followers on Instagram. Then you can think, but hold on a minute. So you have rappers who have tens of thousands of followers on Instagram and on YouTube and whatsoever, complaining and murmuring about this guy called Roger who almost has no followers. Now, if this Roger was a guy with 1 million followers, they could say, oh, they're jealous or they're upset because of Roger's influence. But Roger has almost no followers whatsoever. Now you get to think, what? Everyone would look at this would think this is way out of hand. So what's the benefit of hating on Roger? It cannot be because they try to bring because they want to get attention, because they already have more attention than this Roger. By them hating on Roger, only giving Roger more attention, why would they want to put Roger in the negative daylight? If Roger was an established rapper and they would have beef, it would be different, because you just want attention from the beef. But they already have more attention than Roger, but yet they're the ones mentioning Roger in negative daylight, so they want Roger to be perceived negatively. So somewhere Roger has something to offer that they're afraid of, or else they wouldn't do their best to destroy Roger's influence even before Roger got the influence. Then you check, what is Roger talking about? Roger's singing about Christ. Ah, now you get it. This Roger is powerful in such a way that those people are frightened of him. That's why they have to put him in the negative daylight all the time. So the benefit of them hating on Roger is that they hope to shut Roger down. And what's not being mentioned is why they put so much effort on this Roger. Because they can't explain why they put so much effort on him. They can't. Indeed. So always ask those two questions. Who benefits? Or you can shape it into what's the benefit of it. Then ask what is not being mentioned. Always ask those two questions. So that's it for now. Let me see. I don't have much more to say here. Keep on agreeing with Christ believers and be at peace.